But let's go back to Turkey, and our international affairs editor, Dominic, Waghorn, was at that news conference in Antalya with Sergei Lavrov. Dominic, so from what we can take from those two press conferences, where are we with these talks?
Yeah, well, I think the headlines are that they haven't really made any headway at all. Lavrov said that these are meant to be separate from the Belarusian diplomatic track, and therefore Russians can't deliver on things like ceasefires or humanitarian aid corridors. Dmytro Kuleba, his counterpart for the Ukrainians, said that as far as he's concerned, Lavrov came here without a mandate, that all those things had to be referred back up to Moscow, and clearly Kuleba's very frustrated by that. I mean, whoever's right there, the bottom line is that these talks have not delivered on a ceasefire or humanitarian aid corridors, and therefore you kind of wonder what the point was, apart from both men to come here and lay out their talking points again. I asked Lavrov, I asked him about the credibility of the Russians, really. You know, they said they weren't going to invade Ukraine. They have, and they said that they're going to not hurt civilians, and thousands of civilians are being hurt, or millions have been displaced. But I think if I'd had a follow-up question, and we weren't given more than one question, I would have asked him what planet he's on, because he also said in this press conference up there that Russia has not invaded or attacked Ukraine. Well, clearly it has. You know, he is a veteran, well-respected Russian diplomat, but he's sticking to those talking points that Russia's just involved in a strictly limited military operation. It's not a war, it's not an invasion. If you use those words where Diana is, you could end up in jail for 15 years. And Lavrov, despite being a respected diplomat, was sticking to that script, even though he sounds absurd. He sounds like he's in a parallel universe. I think also, talking about the hospital that Diana was talking about there, he was sticking to the script there as well, which strays slightly from what his spokeswoman was saying. Maria Zakharova was saying before the press conference that she felt that all the pictures of this maternity hospital were faked. Whereas Lavrov, her boss, was saying no, that they felt that this hospital was being used by a far-right, the Azov brigade, so that's a far-right wing of the Ukrainian military in the minds of the Russians, and therefore they would have had a right to attack it. And that's typical Russian misinformation, putting out conflicting stories, often self-contradictory, but to put up a sort of smokescreen that confuses people watching. What you have to say as a dispassionate observer about attacking hospitals is the World Health Organization says that 18 medical facilities have been hit now in Ukraine, 3 over the last 24 hours or so, the most recent one a maternity hospital. And you've got to say that that's a chilling echo of what Russia did in Syria, where it was supporting the Syrian regime and the Iranians. It would deliberately attack hospitals with a rather cynical aim of forcing civilians to flee. If you live somewhere and the safest place in your town is a hospital, for most people it would be, and you hear it's been struck, then you're inclined not to stay put, you're going to flee. And what the Russians are facing in Ukraine is a people power problem. The people are coming out on the streets, they are fronting up with the tanks, they're lying down in front of the tanks. Very brave Ukrainians are trying to push the Russian soldiers out of their towns just through people power. So one way of dealing with that is to just make people flee. And I think you have to suspect that is the strategy behind what the Russians appear to be doing now, which is using airstrikes to target hospitals. Even though we've heard two different sort of answers about what the hospital attack was all about from these two spokespersons for the Russian government, I think it's very worrying about what the future could be bringing in coming hours and days for the people of Ukraine and their medical facilities.